Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order. Today is Thursday, September 26th. It's 3 p.m. This is a special meeting. We have one item on the agenda, and then we're gonna have a budget work session. So, under old business, discuss and approve additional expenditures for road construction. Stephen, went out to bid for Minor Street paving project. We received, two bids. The town clerk opened them this morning at 10 a.m. The first bid, well, the two bids are Pave Right Incorporated for $492,775. And the second bid is from Heidelberg Materials for $521,531.25. So what the board needs to do is, if you have questions of Stephen, we can discuss this, and then we need to make a selection. This does need to be documented by resolution. So I have a draft resolution, but it's not completed, depending upon the final decision of the board. Okay. So, Stephen, is there anything you'd like to add?
Don't have any questions.
Anybody have any questions of the bids?
I did forward the bid specs to the supervisor in the highway committee. I probably should have done it to everyone.
We all got it.
Okay, you do that, okay.
So Heidelberg, we're aware of.
Yep.
They're doing work for the county right now, so this
I
pave
can't
right,
hear you, Jim.
Heidelberg, we're aware of. Because they're doing work for the county right now.
Mhm.
So the other contractor, or have they worked in this area?
He called to see how the bids turned out. I told him that
For
he
me,
was the lower bidder, but there was a meeting at 3 where things would be decided.
Mhm.
And the farthest he got north this year was Governor at this point. He was in Governor doing some work, they're from Lewis County, does a lot, Lewis County, Jefferson County, in that way. Because of trying to get blacktop out of local plants this year has been a struggle at best. He said he's had trucks from his closest Pierpont down there hauling for him back this way.
Sure.
I asked him how, I said, you know, is this, you know, did you start this company from scratch? You know, how did things, he told me that he worked for a large paving crew. That's where he learned how to pave and decided that he wanted to do his own thing. So he started his own company. I think he told me with like $3,100 and currently has 48 employees. And some competitors have tried to buy him out and he won't sell to them.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say the difference between the two bids, is $28,756.25. So that's the difference between the
That's
492 and
Pretty
the,
close on $500,000.
that's pretty close.
Pretty tight.
yeah.
I'd say they're competitive, you know, they're,
So, yeah.
And we had already,
It ain't like they're,
yeah,
way out of whack,
Right.
so.
mhm. And we had already budgeted for the, we had already approved for the Minor Street portion. Obviously, this is more than what we were expecting, but because of, you know, the county not being able to do it because of this Debbie storm. A little side note though, I will be trying to get FEMA money for the additional cost for this, so, all right, anything else? Any further questions? Anything further, Stephen? So we have two bids, one's 28,000 less than the other. And so we do need to pass this by resolution. And basically the resolution says, whereas the town of Canton Minor Street Road paving is scheduled for completion, the town highway superintendent went out for public bid for the paving portion of the project. And whereas the town clerk received and opened sealed bids on September 26th, 2024 at 10 a.m. with two bids being received, I listed the two bids. And, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Canton accepts and approves the bid from. So, is there any motions for a particular bid?
Yeah, you recommend going with Paybright, I would assume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think both of them seem to be very reputable,
so-
As long
so.
as they're both qualified, I mean, we might as well go with the small, or the lower bid.
The lower bid.
It's not much lower, but I mean, money,
Mhm.
money.
It is. It is.
I make a motion then to approve, contract or hiring Paybright to do the Minor Street Road project, the paving of it, per their bid.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? All right, any further discussion or questions? I know I'm gonna be asked when.
Oh, yeah.
When?
Yes.
It's in the specs.
It's in the
that it has
specs
to be
that-
completed on or before October 18th of 24.
Okay,
Correct.
Yes.
all right, very
Good.
good. Okay, so, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. So what Heidi, I'll do is, we'll plug in the numbers on this resolution and then I'll hand that to you to certify. Okay? All right, great.
And I thank you all. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is, this is a basic, not a basic, it's a budget work session.
Bye,
So,
everyone.
bye,
Thank you.
Linda. Steven, you're welcome to stay too, if you'd like. You all have the proposed budget, you have all the documentation for my proposals. Not sure how you wanna start this process, there are a few changes that I would like to, publicly recommend right now. If the board would allow me to do that. One simple one is, for the past 3 years, our state aid, revenue, the AIM money, I've always put in 95,000 because we weren't sure because of COVID. But for the last 3 years, we've received 95,420.
Mhm.
I would like to change that revenue line up, to 95,420 instead of the 95. That's one item in the A account. So you can look at either the purple, the purple one,
95.
or the green. Mhm. Either one, it's just an increase in revenue of $420. So, if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, you take 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah, 95,420. And then the other item that I'm recommending, I did put this in here, is the assistant for the historian. We went through the process, Rachel left us, we went through the process to try to fill it, and it looks like it's not going to work. And I've always questioned why the historian, that is a part-time position, has an assistant, when some of our other departments don't. So I am recommending that we discontinue that historian assistant position. It would be, the amount would be. So the projected pay was 43,44 with about 1,100 in benefits, so it'll be a little over $5,000. I think we really need to discontinue that position. But that for your green, your percent. Yeah, all the,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Did anybody want, so these are the 2024.
Yeah, I just made a note for myself.
So your 2025s are behind the green.
Yeah, I was just
The-
making a note for you.
The
Getting rid of it.
proposal is that everybody gets 3.75% salary increase. This is in alignment with what the highway contract dictates, and it is my fundamental belief that what highway gets as far as pay raises, that everybody should get. And we've done that, I think, the past 2 years, so I am proposing that as well. So I gave you all the highlights and my budget message, that's the yellow. And then the purple is the budget by fund. And if you'll notice, we had to dip into the A fund balance as well as the highway fund balance. We may just keep going with some of the highlights. Would that be helpful?
Sure.
Okay, so the current 2024 budget is 3.794, 136.86. We stayed within the tax cap then. For the last 6 years, we've raised taxes 34 cents total per thousand. What I am proposing for the projected spending plan for 2025 is 4,058,305. This is an increase of $264,000, 168.96. This has to do with, we just received word that the health insurance for active employees, New York State did not allow them to go to the projected 15%. But they did allow for 4.5% of health insurance costs, which is better. And this is the very first year, since I've been here, that, New York State has said, no, it's too much. However, for our retirees, we budgeted for a 25% increase. My hope is that that is gonna go down. But I won't know for another couple weeks. Ian will come up from Excelis and we'll sit down and chat about that. But I did put in the budget for a 25% increase for our retirees. Now, mind you, 3 of those retirees are still in the active plan because they haven't hit the Medicare age yet. So,
Can I ask a question?
mhm.
What's the copay percentage for our retirees?
50% of the cost,
50%?
yes.
When did it go to 50%?
4 or 5 years ago, we changed that,
So before I got on the board. Before I got on the board.
Yes.
yes.
I just didn't know what the percentage was.
Yeah.
I saw it in here at 50% and I was a little stunned it was 50%, but for some reason I had in my head it was 25, but
It's probably just as well you weren't on the board when we did it.
probably,
Well, I'm gonna create, I will say it, that needed to be changed, because when the comptroller's office audited us, they saw a severe discrepancy in, what the retirees were paying and the lack of documentation.
Okay.
But according to the highway contract, it's 50%. So, we did a lot of research and a lot of discussion on that. Remember that, Jim? And it was a tough decision, but it needed to be made.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, and of course, some of it was prompted by the fact that, we had employees that, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, health insurance wasn't a big deal. And there was people that worked for the town for 4 or 5 years that when we went to 50%, we're still getting, as long as they worked for the town, they had health insurance for life, and it gets costly. Difficult thing to do, once you've got it, you can't just arbitrarily take it away, but, they had to get the costs, the share of the cost in line.
And so the interesting part is, and we just, was it yesterday, we mailed out the letters. Our retirees can go to the open market. It's from October 17th to December,
October 15th to December 7th.
so they can go and shop on the open market for other plans. Our plan for them is a supplemental insurance, cause they already get Medicare. They don't have to have our plan. And each year, we send them a letter, and each year, our retirees say, we trust you, we wanna stay with you. So, so we pay 50% of those plans, and they pay the other 50%. Okay, so the 2024 tax rate is $2.95 per thousand. That garnered us 1.1, I'm on the second page at the top, 1.189331 in property taxes. Now, due to having to put in the pilot payments for 3 solar projects, which has to be part of our tax cap formula, we could only max out a balance of 3815. So the proposed tax rate increase is the 2.959363 per thousand. That generates 1.205941 in property taxes, a whopping 16,610. This is if we don't go over the tax cap. Now you have the actual form where I bring it all the way up to $3 per thousand, and it's minimal as far as the additional monies that we would generate. So, you know, so it's right after the first yellow sheet, the tax roll assessment information. I ran numbers going all the way up to $3, and that would generate 1.22 million. It's not a lot of money.
Right,
Um,
green and the white, and there's a.
It's this sheet right here, yeah, right after your yellow one, right here.
Isn't that
I
neat?
mean, this board can decide, you know, what our tax rate's gonna be. We are sending out the legal notice for the public hearing to override the tax cap. Doesn't mean we have to use it.
You built it on 295 though.
I did. That's because of the pilots from the solars I had to put in. Would only allow me to do that online. You know, I can go in there and play with it, and I gave you, so your next page is the actual form, the tax cap form. So just before we pass the budget, I have to submit this, before we pass the budget, just showing that, you know, we stayed within the tax cap. But we're maxing out the tax cap, which, yeah. And so, can we keep going, Jim, or do you?
No.
Okay.
No, go ahead, keep going. Yeah,
Alright,
yeah,
So
guess
our-
let's get off this because this is driving me nuts.
I know,
This is a state of New York is screwing us over so bad in more ways than.
And they don't
most.
even-
It's unbelievable.
Well, don't say it. So wanna say it. So our property valuation did go up from 403 million, I'm back on the yellow highlights.
Yep.
403,163,233 to 407,500,325. So this is an increase in our property valuation of 4,337,092. So let's talk about the reval.
Well, the rebound, well, I mean, let's go back to the point that you made about how we're raising taxes a whopping $16,000. Revenues.
Yeah, from the taxes, yeah.
And so by any chance, did you calculate what that 3.75% increase, how much, what the cost of that is to the town? For all employees?
For all employees, I believe we did look at the pay raises, and it's about, a total of 25,000, I think, total.
So the
But
money
I'd
that,
have to recalculate that, you know, to
Yeah,
the T.
right.
so the additional money that we're gonna raise in taxes
Doesn't,
is about 8,000 short of what we're going to give in salaries. So what does that allow us to do as far as other expenditures? No. We're going backwards. Continue to go backwards. But state wants to stay within the tax cap. They've held that over us for, I don't know how many years? And 1 year. And we've stayed within it. In 1 year, the residents of the town of Canton got a check in the mail. Because the town had stayed under the tax cap. It was either the town or the school district that stayed under the tax cap. And so if you go over the tax cap, you're not eligible for those rebates. I haven't seen one since. But I mean, it's, and to take solar and have to include those pilot payments in that is even worse. Because you take, and when we take those solar pilot monies and plug them into our budget to balance the budget, what's gonna happen 15 years from
Now
now
we're going, yeah.
when those are gone? Do you think for a minute that the taxes that the state is gonna allow us to tax those solar projects enough to keep that revenue constant? Ain't gonna happen, because we already know. The major one, we know for a fact, that if we put them on the tax rolls rather than doing a pilot with them, every year, their assessed valuation goes down. From year 1 to year 25, at year 25, year 26, the assessed value of that major project is going to be zero. And that's when the state will determine what the actual assessed value of it will be at that point. But we have no idea what that's gonna be. And so, again, and there's the one that really is going to, none of us are gonna be sitting here. But I worry about it, even though I'm not gonna be sitting here. What I worry about is taking revenues like that and using them to fill budget holes, and sometime down the road, when that revenue goes away, it's gonna be a substantial revenue. I have no idea what the school district's gonna do, because they said their proposed first year payment, if they do the pilot at that, whatever the projections we've had, it could be $600,000-700,000 for the school.
And this
Yeah,
is just
substantial.
community projects.
Mhm.
This is just the community ones.
Yeah,
that I
these
know.
here are just the
Just the
communities,
community
and,
projects. It's not
okay,
the-
you
Yeah,
can live with that. But because they're not going to be substantial, but I think we need to be very careful looking forward on how we handle these pilot monies. And, because, but again,
unless we argue with the state, we're not putting them in. This is a state mandate that they go in the aid account under the pilots. Now, what's
Sure.
gonna happen next year, Jim?
sure it is. So that, and so what they're doing is, again, they're mandating you do that. They're playing with that cap, with that tax cap number. And so here we sat trying to stay under our tax cap, and we can't generate enough revenue to offset our increases in salaries. Now, that's just brain dead. I'm sorry, because that's not the way you run a business.
Does the 16,610 number there, does that include the increase in the valuation?
Yes,
Yeah,
Oh, it
it's
does.
only 30 some hundred from,
yeah, yeah.
Well, no, we went from 403 million to 470 million,
Right, but if you go
Yeah.
$4
back,
million dollars. That's not what
but
I,
if you go back to the, to
and
that chart, that's where. Um,
And is there any solar
so,
included?
looking at it.
so if you, this is where we're at right now,
Mhm.
and we jumped to 1.2.
Okay, okay. Yep.
So I'm pretty sure I did the math right.
Yeah.
the 16,000, because we're at 1.189 now, if we jump to 1.205. 941. So Jim, to your point, so you have the projected, all the solar for 2026 as well. So the pilot amounts for 3 of them for this year is, 2, 4, 6, about $7,000. Next year, we're projecting it to go to $10,000. So, that's right after the shared services page. And then as far as the host community benefits, we have agreements right now with 3 of them. So what's that, 28,000, and then it's gonna go up to 49,000 for 2026. That's all the projection.
In the 4 million increase in assessed valuation. Solar's not in that, is it?
No, this is a separate revenue source,
Okay,
that if you look in the budget, under the A account, I put it right in there.
that's the pilot.
The host community benefit and the pilots, yes,
Okay.
because when I talked to the comptroller's office, I'm like, okay, this is the first time we've done this, where do I put it? So if you look at the 3rd page of the purple,
But they still have
the
to,
host community benefits 21,000, and then if you go down to the solar pilots, there's 8,000. So it's the 3rd page of the purple. So yes, I put both revenue sources from solar into the A account.
but they have to be assessed. They have to be assessed. So have we got an assessment figure? I still haven't heard. They gotta have an assessed value.
Fire and
Sure they do.
But we've got written agreements to this. We've
It
already
doesn't matter,
agreed
it
to
doesn't matter. The pilots and the host community benefit agreement means nothing. They are still responsible for fire, and they're responsible for anything that is the fire and anything county tax wise that is considered to be a chargeback. They have to pay them off their assessed valuation. So what is their assessed valuation?
I'll have to research that.
Because that's additional revenues that are gonna come to the fire department, so we're just going to just take that in and say, well, let's split this all up and give them that much more money, or, how is that?
Are you saying that the fire department revenue is gonna come to us?
No, well, that's where it usually don't go directly to the fire departments.
Cause I'm just gonna ask that you write that down, that we do more research on that. I can't answer that question.
And so, but I would assume that Cindy is not gonna be able to put an assessment on them probably until they've got to be up and running. There's a couple of them, I mean, maybe they're gonna start making these pilot payments in January, because there's the ones that are gonna be up
The
and running.
3, yes, that we have written
But,
agreements,
but
yeah.
the assessed valuation, maybe that's not coming until next year, but there's got to be an assessed valuation form.
And I'm
I
gonna,
mean, churches have assessed valuation, but they're exempt. I mean, some things, and there are some exempt ones that they're not exempt
Mhm.
from fire, and they're not exempt from chargebacks. These solar projects are not gonna be exempt from that.
So here's even a bigger quagmire. As you know, we have to go to the Supreme Court for Slick. They've challenged their assessment, as well as Thorn Tree. The, Holiday Inn Express.
oh,
That judgment can come down to lower their valuation, which is gonna impact our valuation, which is gonna impact what I proposed. So, well, uh, I'm hoping that it all goes well, but, again, we're at the legal level with that.
so let's go back to this. If they're paying a pilot, it seems like they would have to be responsible for the fire as well. If they're up and running.
Well, they're not gonna be responsible for it until they get an assessed valuation, although, like, we've already got an issue with one of those that, and I don't know where that's gonna go.
Yeah,
But the, where they're locating, they're taking agricultural land out of use and it's switching to commercial.
Mhm.
And so that's gonna affect, I assume there's gonna be an assessment change for that. Because you don't assess agricultural land and commercial land the same. So that's just kind of land. But when the pilot, or when the project gets up and running, I would assume the state has the formula. I can't, I've tried to get an answer on that for 6 months and I haven't called the state, they should know. I mean, they have provided a figure, the EDF has come up with a figure somehow of what they expect their assessed valuation is gonna be, because they give us projections on what they're gonna pay for fire. And so, but I was just wondering what those assessed values are going to be for the pilots. And they shouldn't be too far off because they've got similar values. They're all 5 meg or close to 5 meg
Yeah.
projects. They're all in that $6 to $7 million value, what they gotta invest to get them up and running. But what I don't know is what but maybe are they gonna be 1 million? I don't know.
I believe, and I'll double check with Cindy. I think she put 10 grand per acre, I
That-
think.
That is the increase. My understanding is that's what the increase is on the value of the ag land that they're setting on.
Right.
Like whatever that value is for ag land, which could be, some of them, I'll bet you're under $1,000.
Mhm.
And so now that they've gone from ag to commercial, I believe she's using, which is, I think that figure is being used pretty much maybe across the county. As far as community solar.
One
projects go.
municipality went with 8,000 per acre, and I think another went with 6. And Cindy, she's the sole assessor, she went with 10. But we'll follow up with that with her.
Okay, but again, like I said, I think we need to be very, very careful with it, but it doesn't seem logical to me that the state is mandating to us that we have to include these numbers, our pilot revenues in for the tax cut part of it, because essentially, and what's gonna happen, I'll bet you, when they're all up and running,
Mhm,
by the time we plug them all in,
mhm.
we might be in trouble. We might not even be able to have a tax rate. I mean,
Well, I don't think that, well, really, you think that might be
Huh?
no,
well, but what do we raise?
Look how three of them-
What was our tax rate last year? 295. What's our,
well, that's this
what's,
year,
Hmm?
that's this year.
or this year? And so our projected is 295.9.
63419, no.
It's,
That's right. Something like that.
it's less than a penny.
Well, I'm just showing you
Whereas
that's
the
what,
tax rate's going up a cent. Generating us $3,800.
so,
Because our rate couldn't even, I mean, at least, we went from 287 to 295.
like I said,
That's-
the
that
last
eight-
6
that's
years,
eight-
34 cents.
That's 8 cents. I mean, that gave us,
Yeah,
that gave you $18,000. That,
but
Couple
this
that with
new
your-
revenue is, yeah,
and so it's the revenue from the pilots.
It can't be a full penny or we'll be over the tax cap.
Mhm.
That's what I mean.
It's 0.9363
I know,
cents.
I know.
And
Okay.
of course, when they always talk, when it first came out, it was it was gonna be like a 2%. Yeah, we're down to yeah, less than a penny.
Okay, so do we wanna keep going?
Mm-mm.
Well, let's talk about the reval. Might as well just throw it all on the table. So, as we've been talking for the last couple years, we need to do a revaluation of all properties due to the imbalance of our roles. Right? So the board, supported, having a part-time position up there for this year to get all the records updated, because they're so, outdated. Cindy and Chrissy have done a great job. I think she's getting it down to where so we have about 3,900, parcels. I think we're down to about, I don't know, 800.
That's what you wrote.
Parcels that need to,
Yeah.
she's scrambling. And you gotta have all that, updated information with pictures and data. I mean, she and Mike have found houses that either one or two houses that have been built that we didn't even know they were built. I think, at least one. You know, when she's out there and they're like, oh, there's a new house, well, someone didn't tell anybody. You know, so,
Cost of permits down, I guess.
so we're down to 72%. When I came in 2018, I believe we were at 100%. I believe. We gotta do a reval.
But there's,
So this is what I'm proposing.
there's a ton of reasons why that's happened. Too, it ain't just because, it ain't all of a sudden it all just disappeared, because it's not only, it isn't only Canton that's happened to. I mean, like, it's same thing has happened, a lot of townships that their equalization rates have been going down and down and down, and. I
And I've
mean,
given you copies
I
of
mean-
equalization rates for the county. So here's the deal. I am proposing that we, continue with the part-time position, but increase it to 19 hours a week to do a reval over a 2-year period. We gave you copies of the timeline of how to do a reval, and it is a 2-year process. What the board needs to deliberate is, do we do it in-house or do we contract it out? As you know, Longsburg contracted it out and they paid, I don't know, maybe 280,000. Potsdam is doing it, or starting it right now, and they're paying mid 300,000 with the Gar Associates, that's Gar Associates. I only put in the part-time position in because the board has to deliberate whether we do it in-house, which means we have our assessor do it with a part-time position over a 2-year period. Or whether we contract it out. So if you take what Augsburg is paid, what Potsdam is paying, because our records would be all updated. It would be somewhere around less than, I would say 250. But we would have to, if the board was interested, I could reach out to Gar Associates and possibly get a preliminary, estimate. But again, it would be if the board's interested in doing that, it is a negotiated thing, which means it's a confidential negotiation.
So 19 hours, that they wouldn't have benefits?
No,
What would the rate of that be?
well, if I put it in,
You put it in,
I think
19 hours
20
was?
yep, so if you go to the salaries.
And did Eric, I read that Eric suggested that we go outside, did he give reasoning? I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember.
It seems to me.
This was a while ago
He
that
mentioned it at a meeting, but I don't remember
Yeah.
what his reasoning was.
I'm of the mind that we should go outside. So we should hire it done. This is what they do.
So the part-time clerk I put in for $20 an hour, up to 19 hours a week,
Part-time full-time
$16,000.
assessor. That's not what they do on a daily basis.
Well, some assessors have done their own.
Mhm.
I had a person, come in and
But
who
they're
was
not
an
our
assessor.
employee.
and he said he did his, I can't remember what municipality was that, but. But you're of the opinion we should contract it out.
That's my opinion.
I did talk to the mayor on the cost, the potential cost. We have a shared services agreement where the language is a little, interesting. You know, they pay a third of the cost of the assessor's office right now. Anything kind of above that, we have to talk about. There is preliminary support from the village to pay 1/3 of the cost of, a revow, if it's contracted out.
I would like to know, I'd like to know what their estimate would be before we make that decision, cause if city's done a nice job getting everything together. I know I had to send her a picture and everything,
Mhm.
so,
And Christie has been really helpful,
yeah,
yeah, getting that done.
but I gotta believe, cause somebody told me that Ogdenburg was a mess. Or one of them was a mess, maybe it was Potsdam, it's one of the reasons that was so costly. And they had
I
to go
think there
through-
were some assessor,
Issues?
changes as well.
But they're coming in with our situation, I think this is just my feeling based on they're coming in a much more organized environment here. Than they came into in either one, Potsdam or Ogdensburg, based on people I've talked with over there.
Mhm.
So I'd like to know what they would say, she's, given the work she's already done. We could do it for X, I would like to know what X is before we decide which way we should go on it.
So it's my understanding for Potsdam, the system is if your records aren't all up to date, you gotta send all your records to GAR Associates. And that makes me nervous to begin with, right? But we wouldn't have to do that. You know,
Because then they updated the records, right?
yes,
Guard
It's
is,
one less layer.
that's the point I'm trying to make, because as ours, they're not gonna have to do as much work, I don't think, in our. Revow,
mhm.
that they had to do in those two, I don't know, maybe,
So the thing is, so say it was, let's just play with numbers. Say it was 100,000 each year with GAR. You know, and we get the 30 from the village, so that's 70 grand more that we would have to budget.
minus the part-time clerk.
No, including the part-time clerk. Which is already in the budget, so I'm just talking strictly.
We need a part-time clerk right now to finish the work,
To finish work. Oh,
Well,
Okay.
right?
will the work be
well,
done?
Christie is spending some time up there. We're gonna get that piece done, you know,
So, well, I guess what I'm saying is, you said for 2 years, but if the work's done, we won't need a part-time clerk if we're having the. If guard does the revow. Right?
but I would
I-
have to confirm with GAR Associates. You know, how closely they work with the assessor, because if the assessor's working on the revow. You know, there's other stuff that still has to be done through the assessor's office, you know, taking the phone calls, the emails, you know, I mean, that work is still there, so this is additional work. So I believe the second year, and I'll get this verified, is that's when, you know, the informal grievances would happen. And the grievances, so the bar would be a little bit more busy, most likely because of it. But is everybody in agreement? You want me to reach out to GAR and, try to get a preliminary proposal?
You don't think that's a good idea?
No, well, she said that she thinks the bar would be a little bit more busy. And I just thought that was a little bit more busy.
Oh, yeah,
It's, if you've ever been through one, I mean,
You've been through one.
I've been through two.
You went through,
Three.
so this is easy peasy for you.
Hmm?
You went through 3
I think Nancy.
as town
I
super?
think Nancy did two. Well,
Nancy
when I-
Blodgett, when she was assessor?
when I came, we were at fractional assessment. And that, the first
Define
thing,
what that is,
it,
fractional assessment.
it's. A municipality can choose whatever figure they wanna choose for their equalization rate if they want to. They can do, you don't have to be assessed, you don't have to assess at 100%. Towns might choose to assess at 50%. it does, I mean, there's some in here, the equalization rate is, there's one right here. Declared equalization rate is two, which tells me they're using fractional assessment, and so, which would mean that their tax rate is, $237 per thousand.
230.
But you're using an equal rate of two. And so, but again, when you start talking reval, what's,
I am talking reval. We gotta
what's,
get it
what's
done.
it gonna do for us?
It's gonna,
What's it gonna do?
Jim, you know, our tax rolls are not equalized the way they should be.
And so, a reval is going to solve that problem. Boom, all of a sudden, everybody's going to be assessed for exactly what they're supposed to be assessed at.
Good. I doubt it.
I mean, maybe will it get closer? But if you look, there's 32 towns in St. Lawrence County, two. The Poyster and Pitcairn are the only two towns at 100% equalization rate. All the rest of them are at, I mean, several of them in the 70s and 80s. And they all went down, you know, about the same way. What happened is, and again, whether it's COVID or what it was, but I mean, all of a sudden, you know, property values just went. And so when people started moving properties, that's what threw it out of whack. So when the state starts comparing what those sales are, you know, you've got, well, there's one just recently, assessed for 269,000, sold for 400. That's what throws those out of whack. But that doesn't mean that the assessor can just arbitrarily put an assessed value on that new.
Not
Place.
based on sales, no, because it's not legal,
Based on just that sale,
right?
because, you know.
It's not legal to do that.
You can't legally do that.
Right,
So, is that person that made that purchase of the, you know, 130,000 more than what it was assessed for, are they going to pay? No, because the assessor's not going to bring that value right up to that sale price.
the assessor
They
can't,
can't-
based on the sale, but during a reval, it can be increased.
Well, in a reval, that one may stay in that neighborhood and others will be raised up to it, but chances are. A lot of them are in that same boat. You know, and again, I know what's gonna happen. I got a good idea what's gonna happen with this reval. And so, and you're going to, there'll be a amount of pushback to it, but
Mhm.
I mean, it's,
So are you thinking we shouldn't
well,
do that?
I said, can we justify what you said, Augsburg spent 250,000? Did they actually use that reval? I thought they threw it out. There was so much.
I don't know what I'm.
There was so much flack for it, but according to this here, Augsburg is at 100%. But it was my understanding that there was so much flack over that hired reval in Augsburg that they ended up not even using it. And so,
So are
you
you
know,
suggesting,
what I'm wondering is, I said, let's throw a figure out there, say 250,000 to a reval. What's it? If I invest 250,000 in something like that, I would kind of hope to get it back somehow, for whatever reason. But where are we gonna get that back? Where's it gonna come
by
from?
the increase in valuation, multiply it by the tax rate? So right now.
No,
my
no,
valuation-
you
Yes.
don't just do that. You don't
What do you
plug
mean?
that. No, you don't do
The
that.
valuation,
No,
Jim.
no,
Right
that is not how that works. If you, the only way, the only way you're going to get more tax money is if we spend more money. So if, say, our I don't know, whatever it is, it's 400 million. This is what our value is.
Our value.
And
is
our tax rate,
4.7
and-
right now.
Okay, whatever,
Or no,
400, say,
4.3,
okay,
and then it went up to 4.7.
okay, so whatever it is.
So 4.3
And our
million.
tax rate is 295.
Yeah,
Okay, let me use some figures. Say it's 400,000 or 400 million. And our tax rate is $3 to generate the revenue that we need to operate town government. If we did a reval and that doubled from 400 million to 800 million,
mhm.
our tax rate's gonna cut in half. Our tax rate will go from 3 to $1.50. Because we're not spending any more. If we don't spend any more money, what do we, all of a sudden, the amount of money we're gonna raise is gonna double because you think you got problems now, just as soon as somebody's taxes double because of a revale. That isn't the way it works. The only way a change in assessment is going to affect you much is if government spends more money. That's where their costs come from, is to satisfy what we spend for money.
Mhm.
Increase in that assessed valuation over the total of it doesn't guarantee us more money. It doesn't guarantee us anything. It's only what we decide to
Right,
spend.
right.
And so.
The town council can make,
And so
can
only-
determine what the tax rate's gonna be.
the
Yes,
only place we would gain by a reval is as long as no other townships did anything, we would maybe cut into their share of sales tax a little bit. Because the sales tax distribution is based on assessed valuation and population. So if all of a sudden our assessed valuation is up, it's going to give us a little difference in our share, but it isn't gonna amount to enough to say so. So again, my question is, by doing a reval and we spend 250,000, what are we getting for that money? I want somebody to
more
tell me.
equalized.
I want
tax roll.
somebody to tell me that we're gonna get a payback for that. Because,
It's about fundamental fairness of what your property is, and if I am paying, say mine is just as equally as nice, but
If-
I'm paying
if-
more in taxes than you, how is that fundamentally fair? It's about fair, equity and fairness of the tax rolls.
take 10 people and have them go out and assess people's properties, you're gonna get that many different figures. And so I understand what you're saying about fundamental fairness, but the fact of the matter is, how many grievances did Cindy have this year at grievance day?
Hmm,
Are
8 or
people
9.
upset with
8 or 9,
their assessment?
8 or 9,
Out
I
of
believe.
how many parcels? 30-some
30,
hundred.
3900.
3,900.
That, I'm just saying. I need a real good argument for doing a reval that we're going to spend that kind of money on.
Like I said, we can do it in-house or we can contract it out.
And that's
Other
my,
assessors have done full revals.
my opinion, my opinion.
Our assessor has done a reval from her prior employment. But then again, she had 3 staff under her to do it, and it was a larger thing. All right, so are we in consensus that I'm hearing your opinion, John's opinion, Randy, Wayne? You want me to reach out and get some preliminary information?
Doesn't hurt anything to get a price, I guess, or an estimate.
Yeah, that doesn't
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we could compare apples and apples, if we have an actual dollar amount.
Okay. So my to-do list. I'll call Gar. All right, you saw the additional highlights. We increased the sales tax revenues based upon the last 3 years of experience by 194,000. The highway reimbursement, we expect it hopefully not to decrease, but stay the same. The Debbie storm has severely impacted our highway, budget. So we're gonna be dipping into our fund balance. We've almost maxed out on our overtime for this year that we budgeted, because of the Debbie storm. That's problematic. Court revenue, we're seeing a small comeback with the court revenue. This board needs to deliberate on, whether we continue to do tax collection for Canton Central. I did not put that revenue in there. Health insurance we talked about. We already talked about the labor contract. There is an increase in gray and gray of 3%. I did not, put any capital projects as a line item in this budget. 64 Main Street, we got some figures on paving this year. The figures are too high, because the county can't do it, so that's put on hold. We already, preliminarily talked about that. The host community benefits was already done, and then, we have a comprehensive plan. There is a meeting downstairs on the New York Forward, and I'll be talking to Jackie about the delay in the update of the comprehensive plan. We had a very large meeting with all the departments. The departments filled out surveys. We need to get that done. So, but part of our comprehensive plan is to do a housing inventory. And I've already spoke to Mike McQuaid on this. He does sit on the Fair Housing Board, and he's really interested in the housing piece of our town. I did get 2 preliminary quotes to do a housing inventory. Partner of the Judas is $50,000 and Dank is $5,000. So, I did put in a contingency line item in here under the B account. I would really like to start that conversation next year to do a full-fledged housing inventory, because it is part of our comprehensive plan, and we really need to get a handle on that. I've already spoke to you about the assessor's office, the historian's office. You've seen, all the department's requests are in here. I've increased clerk, proposals a little bit, code. Heidi, can you remind me where we are with the E-code program? And that
What
is,
stage we're on right now?
yes.
Um,
So this is taking all of our legislation and contracting with E-code to put it in a much more professional, formal way.
right, we're at the point where they've sent us like 70 something sections that we need to review. They have some suggestions on the wording, just to make sure everything's right. But I think there's roughly 70 something questions, and I don't know how many days we have to answer it, but I think it goes until next year, this phase that we're in. And then it should be done next year.
I think we've already paid two bills of the contract, so there is an annual fee of
There's 2
11.
phases left.
I'm sorry?
I think there's only 2 phases left. I
Okay.
think. Off the top of my
All
head.
right, so, but there is an $11.95 a year to keep E-code, so every time we pass legislation, it goes to E-code and that's what's covered. Dog control, spoke with Dan and going from 500 to 600 for the kennel cost. Fire protection, you have all copies of the fire departments now. The only one that I've seen that has semi-requested an increase is Canton Fire, but what I've done is I've kept everybody at the same level. I'm still waiting to hear from the Morley Fire District, on increasing theirs. Every year that I've been here, they've increased it. This is a tax that the Morley Fire District, collects. So I kept the 14,151 in there. Highway, you have Stephen's proposals. The two big items that I am, supporting is adding in an additional position for an MEO, which would eventually become an HEO. So I budgeted for an HEO position. So that's an additional position, that I put in there. And if you look, if you go to your, after the green, that's all the personnel. And for an additional position of an HEO, the current contract is $27 and 98 cents an hour. But if you add in the 80 hours of overtime, it's the second page of the white. And then I budgeted for a family plan. Because whoever's coming in, we don't know what type of, health insurance that they would want. So you're speaking, for an additional position in highway, I take that back, the current. For 2025, the current rate would be 2903. Now, it's 2798 right now, it'll go to 2903. So with the 22,080 hours and then the 80 hours of overtime, we're talking 63,866. And then, with the, retirement, it would be tier 6, and then social security, and then a family plan. Which a new person coming in as per contract is 20% contribution. So right now we have 8 positions in highway. Half pay what was negotiated in the contract, the other half pay 20% of the cost of the plan. So what I did is took the family plan for this new position. So you're talking over $100,000 for a cost of a new position in highway, but it is needed. The biggest difference is if, the person hired, if they, didn't take health insurance, there's a buyback there that we, give back to the employee. Or if they take a lesser than a family plan. So, but you have to maximize what could happen, right? So that was one big item. And what I did to balance these, accounts, they took a position out of the DA and put it in the DB. The next big item, is to increase construction from 800,000 to 900,000. The request was, from 800,000 to 1 million, but I felt that, as far as, adding an additional position, that this was a fair compromise, for construction. So that's under highway. We will have to take money out of an appropriated fund balance of, let me see on this one. $395, $229. Last year, we took money out of a fund balance of $354 to help with the costs. There's other, increases that I supported of Stephen's request. I think we're in good shape. There was one. Was that the lift? The lift we put in A, right? You put in A under garage, because we need a new lift in the garage, okay? All right. So that's highway. Justice Court, we have supported a lot of requests over the past 6 years for Justice Court. They requested 4 or 5 additional items. I've supported 2. They've requested adding a part-time records management position in the court office. I do not support that, creating a new position, because I feel that there's a and I said this to Justice Morgan, there's a disconnect between, the clerk's office working with the court office and vice versa, the court, feels that records management is a kind of responsibility too, but Heidi is the records management for the town. I've tried to bridge that gap. I don't support adding another position. We have 2 full-time clerks up there and, 2 justices, and records management is not fun. We all know this, right? But it's gotta be done. And Heidi's the one that's responsible for it. Now, there's certain things I'm told that, the town clerk's office can't look at records of sitting judges. But there's several boxes before that Heidi can help out. There's disposition, there's, a certain record you have to keep forever, certain you can dispose of, but there's a legal process that we have to go through. So it is my hope that, the clerk's office and court can sit down and say, okay, let's figure this out. If you remember, the JCAP grant supported shipping 62 boxes of records, to a company. There's now a glitch, because there's some type of legal question about what records they can dispose of, who has to approve them, and that type of thing, so I believe those boxes are coming back. So, they've also requested a substantial increase for the second court, clerk. I did not support that, 3.75 for everybody. I did increase their contractual a little bit and staff development. I did increase the constable hourly rate to $28 an hour. So that's justice court. Supervisor, not too much in change, maybe a little bit in contractual. And then, for community program funding, the VFW, I kept the same, senior citizens and the county chamber, the same. The Volunteer Transportation Center has requested $1,800 from the town of Canton to support their operations. They requested that last year and the board chose not to support them. I did not put that in there. It's a wonderful program, there's no doubt about it. The chamber's doing great, at the $4,000. Senior citizens, I believe, is 1885, and VFW, we kept at 3,500. What else am I missing?
So you said that construction, you're going from, Stephen asked for $1 million.
Yeah,
We gave 800,000 and you're recommending 9.
900,000.
Well, why does the line show 807,342?
All right, say that again, Jim.
So if you're looking, whether it's in these, the blue ones or in the
The green.
further back one, under construction 1A, instead it shows 807,342, not 900.
Okay, let me look at it. I guess I'm gonna have to look at it again,
That's
because I
that's-
did not
that's 90
catch that.
That's 93,000. That's
I
not,
did not catch that.
that might throw your budget out of whack.
Well, what we would do is increase that, to the 900,000 and then, decrease the fund balance that we would need. Or increase the fund balance that we would need. Let me look at that again.
But
I did not even,
how much,
Chrissy, please make a note of that
and how much are you taking out of fund balance to balance it
right now,
right now? That
395,
Pardon?
395.
You're taking 395,000 out of fund balance.
Yeah, last year we took out 354.
At what point does
That
that,
should have been That should have been 900,000.
What point does that go dry?
What point does what go down?
What point does that fund balance go dry? You take 358 and then 394. You can't keep doing that every year unless you're putting money back in.
Mhm.
So
We-
at some point, that fund balance will go down to zero and then
We've
again,
been very good with managing our fund balances in highway, as you see the bank account.
yeah.
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 What's good, what has really hurt us, Jim, is the Debbie storm,
Yeah, so
to the tune of right now, just right now.
like
We
three,
calculated a little over $200,000 damage.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to, now that the president has declared it, a disaster, we will get FEMA, it's my understanding, we will get FEMA forms. We've already submitted all our information to the county emergency department, that we'll get FEMA forms and then we fill those all out. And
and I understand that, so if we take that and we can put it back into, you said we took 354 out of fund
Mhm.
balance. Keep going this year, and we put that, you put that money back, but then you're gonna turn around and you take another 390 out this year. Where's that money gonna come from to put that back?
we're expecting,
Sales tax?
I did increase the sales tax already. What, was it about 70,000 left in the chips that we haven't gotten yet for
71,
this year?
71 and change.
71,000 for just this year.
And so,
But remember, Jim, you and I have argued about this. You've never let me put in the EWR and the,
right,
money.
and so the reason we did that is we didn't have guarantees on it. But then when that money did show up, then we would go on and do additional work. And so, but now you're going to take that money, we're not doing additional work with it, we're taking that money and we're putting it back in the fund balance. Is what you're saying.
We're doing the additional work up front. Is what she's saying, right?
Well,
And the money we're gonna get, we're gonna put back in the fund balance.
I can see why
So-
so much got taken out because of the storm.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
understand that.
so we haven't changed the budget yet because we have to do a budget amendment. We did receive, so we have all the highway state money, right? So now I have to do a budget amendment to get that
To get
added
that.
into the budget, so that'll show a little bit of different things, but, I apologize, I did not catch that. I thought we were good.
That minor.
Like, just a minor. Listen, we can still keep it at 800. No, what I wanted to do, but we can't do it, is have a capital improvement line. You know, yeah,
Well,
and
I
this
said-
is the thing too.
when,
There's so much money out there from New York State and all these grants. We don't have a planner. I would have loved to add a planning position to this to get a lot of the money. That, yeah, don't get me going. All right, how's our time here? It's 4:15. All right. Are there any, so we need to, what was the list here? So it looks like we need to make 3 or 4 changes. Is that what I'm hearing from everybody?
just, yeah.
Well, I'd like to talk about the clerk.
Okay,
Your recommendation, I requested that the register of vital statistics compensation
mhm.
of $2,344 be put in her base salary. What's the reasoning that you don't wanna do that? Is there a reason that
So
you're
the
recommending not
registrar,
to do that?
the registrar pay and the tax collector pay has always been separate from the base pay of the clerk.
Understood.
So I felt that, for this coming year, if we increase those 2 items a little bit, and then, I'm gonna add, I've already asked Heidi as early as today, that, I'd really like her to come to the board, and increase everybody's knowledge about what the registrar does, what other, municipalities do. And I told her I support it, but with the increase in the two items that I put in there now, gives a little bit of a better pay increase. But if you take that 2334 and add it to her base salary now and then multiply it by 37, or excuse me, 3.75%, you'd have to look at that. And then you'd have to look at where's that additional revenue gonna come from. So are you suggesting that we just do that now?
How much is it there? To what? Don't have it. How much is it paid this year?
$2,334 according to this.
1,334 times 1.0375. We'll raise it to be $120. $2,421.53. So it'd only be different because whether it's in her base salary or not her base salary, it's still the same percentage.
Yeah, and I don't get why it's not in there in the first place, because I did a little research and for at least 40 years, the town clerk has been doing that job, so why not just put it in her salary anyway?
What three municipalities have it in the current salary? Is it Ogden? Do you remember, Heidi? Oh, I put it in
It's
here.
in our, it's in
It's
our
in
book.
there.
Messina gets paid $6,000.
It's part of the salary,
Nope.
the register.
The registrar for Messina gets paid $6,000. The
$6,000?
town clerks get $6,000 to be a registrar, and then the
In
town of
Messina.
Governor gets $10. She gets the town doesn't get the money of the certified copies that are sold. She gets it. Every other clerk that we talk to is included in their town clerk salary.
It's included,
So those are the only two that I reached out to that.
but the tax collector piece is still separate.
Yeah, I'm not
For a
talking
lot,
about that, I'm
no,
only talking
I'm
about
just saying for those.
the vital statistics portion.
Yeah.
And
So if you look at it though, looking at if it was in her salary, that 2334 would go up $120, and you're proposing to raise it $166. So it'd be better, more beneficial for you financially this year to not put it in by $30 or whatever it is. Just from a straight dollar value.
so what you're saying is she'd make more by letting Mary Ann do it this way, this year.
This year, she'd be making more.
Okay,
Cause, I mean, if you put the
Yeah.
3.75%, if I apply it to the whole thing, it's I can still apply it to the difference.
Mm.
And mathematically, it's the same. So it would go from 2334 to 2421. And she's gonna give you 2,500, so you
And
make an
that- and
extra,
That's
make an
more than the
extra-
3.75%
$79.
See
That's
what I'm-
another reason why you want it in your salary.
I think with personnel issues, we need to be careful. That, if we wanted to go into executive session to talk about it,
True,
we can do that.
Yeah.
But
but from a
it
straight,
would be more than like, if it was put into her salary this year, it would be more than the 3.75% pay increase that she gets. But
No, it
minimal.
no, when
I have the numbers in there that
I had just the numbers right here. We put it in her pay, that 2334
mhm.
would turn into 2421.
So her salary right now is 47,206.
Mhm.
So if you add the 2334. And then do a 3.75% increase, yeah, yeah. So I thought it was better doing it this way for this year,
Financially,
yes.
it is $80 more.
But a lot of people don't know what the registrar of vital statistics, and you're seeing an increase, right?
You see an increase every year for everything that I do.
What?
You see an increase every year for everything that I do.
Of the demand, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, if you want, I can go into executive session to tell you why I feel that.
I couldn't hear you.
It'd be better if you
If
did it
you
that way.
feel
instead of-
that I need to go into executive session to say why I feel that it should be part of the salary, I'm okay with that. I mean, we talked about, it got brought up last year in a budget work session.
And it shouldn't have.
Or I can run the numbers and, you know, we have to have one more, work session. I can run the numbers and,
But any justification she has, any conversation about this, I think it should happen in executive session, because it's personnel.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is the forum for that discussion.
okay.
I mean, I'm sure it's, I just don't think it's appropriate to talk about it here.
So do you wanna go into executive session to discuss it? Yep. Are we done discussing everything else
Pretty
though?
much for right now.
We do have to set another work session.
Yeah.
Um. So the original, calendar, we thought about October 3rd, but as far as turnaround and some changes in here. I'm out next Monday and, half of Tuesday, so the turnaround's gonna be too tight to do it next Thursday. We have a board meeting on the 9th. So I was thinking we could do it on the 8th, maybe? If we did it again at 3 o'clock,
I'm gonna be in Lake Placid
Uh-oh.
on the 8th,
on the eighth.
will you be here for
On the
the,
eighth,
Is that your
you're not,
key?
you're not gonna be here.
That's, no, that's my pre,
Oh, it's pre.
Meeting.
It's not
the
yet.
surgery's
In
November
November.
6th. I got the call on Monday,
What is it, November
November 6th.
6th?
so you'll be in Lake Placid at 3,
Oh, yeah, my appointment's at 1 and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
never on
so
time.
you'll be there till 8?
Probably.
Okay.
Get a hotel room,
You know the drill.
get a hotel room.
Well, we have a board meeting on the 9th, um. Any suggestions?
Well,
We have to pass a budget by, on or before the 5th, right?
Is it gonna be more than anybody wants to handle, but?
What's
if
that?
it- Is it gonna be more than anybody wants to handle if the board meeting's on the 9th? If we meet at 4 on the 9th to do budget workshop prior to the meeting? I mean, how much is on the agenda for October?
We have the public hearing on the tax cap for
Yes,
5
that's-
minutes.
Yes, for
maybe
5
2.
minutes, for 5 minutes.
And right now we have one, old business and 3 new business.
Just saying.
Heidi, are you available earlier that day?
Just to play devil's advocate. If anything comes up though, we wouldn't have time to get it done by the meeting.
What do you mean?
I don't know, like things came up today, cause I don't know, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No.
If something happens.
Oh, yeah, turnaround's really fun. Yeah, if something happens, so that would be the preliminary budget that we would look at,
On the 9th.
on the 9th. Well, with some changes here. I think it still needs to stay as a tentative budget. Because preliminary budgets, you have to make formal resolution, like formal, votes.
What do we have to have a final budget by, what was the date?
November 18th.
Well, we have to have a public hearing. First. Our other board meeting is the 13th of November. And you can adopt a preliminary budget with changes that will become your regular budget.
I'm just,
No, yeah,
just playing devil's advocate in case we couldn't get something happen. we couldn't get it done.
and I sent you what my schedule is for October, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And even though the budget's gotta be adopted by the 18th, but it's safe to assume that we're more likely to adopt it on the 13th, at our regular November board meeting.
yeah, isn't that what we did last year, I think? Yeah. Mhm. But John, you're gonna be gone on the sixth, November sixth, right? And you're gonna zoom into our
And then I'll
meeting on
be-
the thirteenth?
I'll zoom in on the 13th. Yep. Probably while I'm on that dumb machine like I did last time.
So you wanna do the public hearing on the thirteenth and then look to pass the budget on November
Well,
13th? Or should we just wait?
Well, that's, if you do that, you know, people may come to a public hearing with the idea that they're gonna make recommendations with regard to the budget. And if you just turn right around and vote on it that night, you pretty much have said that, well, thanks for coming, but we didn't have time to
You
just
should
look
think
at
about
it.
what they
not-
say.
Yeah, so, you know, I think we need to have a public hearing so that when anybody comes up with proposals or whatever, you have time to think about. Because sometimes it may be more substantive than you would think for. So, there's always that possibility. Somebody might be able to figure out where to come up with.
So do we wanna do a budget meeting on the ninth?
Or, so you said?
Okay with that.
Me too.
Heidi, would that be good with you?
I think so, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
So our next, okay, 4 p.m. Next
doing,
budget meeting, budget work session.
We're doing the audit at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we get to spend the day here. And Wimpy's is closed, I think, or closing. They're closed. Who knows? I tried by myself, I bought enough hot dogs, I should have kept them.
We call that multitasking, John, and that's a good thing.
Macaroni and cheese was the major draw for myself.
I get.
Really, Wimpy's is closed?
Yes. Okay,
Executive session.
make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of personnel.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, carried.
I have a question. I go down to notify the bidder that they've been awarded and
We